Welcome, everyone. I'm Justin Silverman of the New England First Amendment Coalition. Thank you for joining us for another 30-Minute Skills. As a reminder, all our 30-minute skills are available at nefac.org/30-minute skills. They include data cleaning, data visualization, privacy law, Microsoft Excel basics, how to diversify sources, and how to protect yourself as a journalist, among many other topics. You also find at nefac.org a growing list of upcoming presentations and events focused on the First Amendment in journalism. Nearly all of them are free and open to the public, so please check them out and consider joining us. Today, we'll be discussing ways to best find people online, a valuable skill for journalists and non-journalists alike. We have a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so let's get started. Sassy, all yours.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Izaskun Larrañeta. I'm the executive editor at The Day, but feel free to, reach out to me and call me Sassy. So I'm going to teach you some basic skills on how to find people online. Most of you already know how to do this stuff, but just reinforcing this. But if we have to be honest, the best way to find people, especially as a journalist, is to get your butt out of the office and knock on some doors. That's how you're going to interact with people. That's how you're going to find people immediately. Plus, it's harder to slam a door on someone's face, versus hanging up on them when you're in the office. So let's get that out of the way. That's the best, thing to do is to get out. But we're not doing that right now. We're trying to find people online. So a little bit background about me. Before I became the executive editor, I was the managing editor of The Day newspaper in New London. But before that, too, I was the breaking news reporter. So that mostly encompassed crimes, fires, major incidences, and you had to get out there and find people. For example, I would start at a basic level. I would do a quick Google search. If I was looking for someone, quickly, I would do a Google search and see if there was anything that popped up, anything that could be useful. When I was covering breaking news, I couldn't wait for police to release the IDs of the victims. I couldn't wait for the fire department to release the address of where the fire occurred. In this business, you have to turn things around quickly, accurately, and quickly. So right now, I would start with the basic search on Facebook. I would, Justin and I are not Facebook friends, but I heard Justin is going to win won $1 million in lottery, and it's a local connection. Now let's up it. Justin, you won the Powerball. So I'm not Facebook friends with Justin. So what I would do initially would be, a simple Facebook search of Justin. And as you can see, his image pops. I'm still not sure if this is the Justin that I want to contact. So I would go to the About page. The person that won the Powerball does live in Massachusetts. So that's, getting me closer to him. But there's no other information to show because the Justin that I'm looking for, works at NEFAC, and I don't see that there. And I don't know, if this is him. So I would go to his post. What happened is that a lot of people now put their settings on Facebook and on Instagram as private. They've kind of discovered that that's a way to keep your information as private as possible. Good for them, but not so much good for journalists who are trying to find information. So I see that Justin, look at this. Justin did a fundraiser for the New England First Amendment Coalition. Now, because Justin and I aren't friends, I could message him, but the odds are that he will not see my message because it'll go to that other folder. So let me see if I can find any connections with Justin. Oh, I see that he's married. And thank you, Justin, for being a good sport about this. And I see that he's married. I see that it's to lovely Danielle. So then, okay, I'm getting closer. When I want to interview someone, not just I want to interview Justin, but I want to interview people who know Justin. So I would go to the friends and I can see that, all these friends, but you know what, let's narrow it down. I want to see who shares the same last name, Silverman. And look at this, it narrows your search even more. So now I want to see Justin, who's a billionaire now because he won the lotto, who I can contact and what their relations are. So I would send messages to people this way. I would go online and see if there's a number or work location to find people. And everything that I'm applying here can also be done on Instagram. Snapchat is a little weird because it doesn't record quickly and, it erases after a while. So these are basically for the Instagram, which is what younger people use. And then there's Facebook, is what people of my generation use. So it's a much older field. But as you can see, I've already tracked down several people that are related to Justin in some way, shape, or form. I can use this to find information about him, and they could either tell me how wonderful Justin is and how he's going to share the money with NEFAC, and now, he's going to help the community, whatever. So that's one way to find people. Mine was mostly crime. So I would usually do like hashtag searches, hashtag RIP and New London, or hashtag, the area, the city, or the street that was located. That's another way to track down and find people, so where you're looking for. Another thing is, let's put some random person's name here. Let's see, RIP New London, and just seeing what we can find. Well, this poor person looks like they lost their dog. But when you look at the post, you want to kind of go on the Facebook. You want to like have any date. You want to make sure the tag location, if it's anywhere, you want to go anywhere, make your broad search, or you could even narrow it down by the location in the city. So, if I knew this incident happened, for example, let's switch gears here. If we're talking about a crimes that happened in New London, I would type New London and see what pops up. And a lot of people, put their post as public, photos as public. So you go to the photo type, you click all photos, and that'll even broaden your search even and more. So like that, you could give you more options. It's a lot of like little legwork to do, but it's like hunting. I'm a very curious person by nature, and it's like hunting. You just kind of get the pieces. And when you make these connections, it makes you feel good, because when you finally track down the person that you need to find, it's amazing to do that. So those are some of the things you want to do. You want to do a hashtag, you want to find the person's name, you want to see if there's any friends. A lot of times people hide their friends, but you also then go to the photos, because what happens is you may have your setting as a private, but if your friend tags you in a photo and their settings are public, guess what? I can see you and find your photo. I know it kind of seems weird, but remember, the end goal is to find more information about Justin, since he's a billionaire now. So let's switch gears to how we could also use the Facebook. A lot of towns have their own forum pages. So let's go here. Let's see, Norwich. I'm just popping up Norwich Community Forum. I recommend any journalists here's Norwich Community Forum. I recommend journalists who are watching right now to join different community forums in their coverage area. So I'm a part of the Norwich Community one. I'm part of the Salem one. I'm part of the New London one. And the reason for that is sometimes they give you more information on how to track someone down without even trying. So again, if there was a fire on Bayonet Street in New London, or let's say Broadway in Norwich, someone would say, oh my God, what's happening in Broadway Street? There's a fire. Usually someone will chime in and say, oh, that's my neighbor's house. Aha, I didn't know who lived there, but now I know it's their neighbor. So I can reach out to that person because I'm a member of the forum and say, hey, I'm a reporter with the day newspaper. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Is there a way that you can put me in contact with this person? And most of the time, believe it or not, people will be very receptive and helpful and putting you in contact with that person. So that's another thing I would do. Join every forum page in your coverage area. Because not only that, but you could also ask questions. You can say, listen, I'm trying to track down the person who lives on Broadway, who's lost their home in a fire. That's one way to do it. And then, so another way you can find people is, the Nextdoor app. If you're not a member of Nextdoor, every community has its own version of the Nextdoor. That's another good source of finding people. Because there's zones. So like I live in Colchester, and my Nextdoor app is the Buckley Hill area, but you can broaden or widen your search on the Nextdoor app. So that's another way to find people and track them down. So let me give you an example of why it's important to, like, communicate this way and try to find people this way. So I covered a triple fatal accident in Basra. And it was a really sad scene. And the road was closed for almost 2 days because of the investigative aspect to it. I knew it was on this certain road, and because everything was blocked off, how was I gonna try to find out what happened? I went to, let's see if this is the one I want. I went to the assessor's office, but this is Colchester's, because I went to the Basra assessor's office where I can, type the street down. So let me just, and every town has a GIS system, or a place where you can find is called the geographic info system. Every town has one. Every city has one. You can find out who lives on that street, how long they have lived on that street because of the property record. So let's say this is Colchester's site. You don't even have to have the person's name. So let's say you're covering a crime that happened. I'm going to say this happened on Jolin Lane. The road's blocked off, but I know Jolin Lane is where this incident happened. So I'm going to scroll down. Can everybody see? I just want to make sure since.
Yep, we're all set, Sassy.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. So I typed Jolin Lane. I actually live on Jolin Lane. So I say, oh my goodness. Okay, now the road is closed off. I'm not 100% sure where this incident happened because police are blocking my view. So I went to the Colchester assessor office. I looked into the GIS system, and suddenly now I have everyone who lives on Jolin Lane. So this is something that everyone could have access to. Another thing too, you could go to the tax records. This is important to know, like if you're writing about someone that you've finally discovered, if they're, especially for business dealings, I'm switching gears a little bit, but a lot of the times you're writing about someone who you don't really know well, you don't know who owns the business. You can go to the Secretary of State's office and you can do a search. I'll show you how to do that later on. You could do the search, and then you can find their name by who owns the business, because they have to register. If they're legitimate business, they have to register with the Secretary of State. But I'm digressing. I'm going a little bit ahead of here. So that was the situation in the Basra triple fatal. I was able to find out who lived on that road. And I was lucky enough to find the person who actually came upon the scene and discovered the awful crash, what he heard, what he saw. And I was the only person to have that access, to do it, because, my story had that, because I guess, I don't know, other journalists didn't think of doing that, or they thought that the hurdle was the road was closed, so I can't do any reporting. And that's not the case at all. Another example is, let me go to the Judicial website. Everyone should look at the Judicial website. On the Judicial website, you can find civil, criminal, foreclosures. You could do case lookups. But let me tell you, so I covered a suicide by cop in Salem. I knew the address of the home. I didn't know who lived in the home. Again, I went to the Salem assessor's office. I did the search, and I found that, it was Bergeson who lived there. Again, I have no idea if that person was the one that shot, because again, police aren't releasing any information. And, you're going to have to wait a day or two for that to happen. We don't have that luxury to wait a day or two. We have to do the best reporting and try to gather the most information quickly and before people, because, we're kind of competitive too, right? Journalists are competitive. So what did I do? So I knew the address, and I was curious. I was like, okay, let me put this person's name on the Judicial website. I try to do it again to show you, but the site's it's been expunged, it's been taken away, so it's not there anymore. But I can show you that why would someone who lived in their house burn their house down and then act like he was going to charge at the police, and he got fatally killed because of that? So I went to the Judicial website. I did a case lookup, and I noticed that he had a divorce filing there. So I still wasn't 100% sure that this was the person that had died in that situation, but I wanted to look at the file. I was able to go to the Norwich court, look at the divorce file, and then, this is the article that I wrote about it, was able to discover that, you know what, I think this may be the person who was killed and burned his and set his house on fire. Again, we're not really sure about what is his makeup, but according to the documents, as you can see here, he had become upset, and the plaintiff was his wife, that she will receive nothing as it relates to their finances. And the defendant had further told the plaintiff he will make sure that their assets do not exist in any way that the plaintiff could ever receive access to them. So then you start thinking, okay, you're not 100% sure that this is the person, but it seems like I'm getting closer there, because it was a contentious divorce and he burned his house down. So now I have a name because of the filings. What I did was, again, I went to Facebook, put the name in, saw the connections. I did a hashtag Salem, hashtag fire. And then I was able to confirm that, yes, in fact, this person was the person in the divorce filings who essentially said that he was never going to give his spouse access to the house. So that made sense. That made sense that why he would burn the house down. I know these are not like fun topics and stuff like that, but you gotta, what our job as journalists is try to explain as best as we can, why do these situations happen? So that was, again, that was something that I only had because it hadn't occurred to people to maybe, go and look for the civil file. Criminal, he only had one pending case, which was the domestic incident that he had, but that didn't really tell you his motivations. It was only when I looked at the divorce proceedings that I showed you. Now, everything that I'm telling you right now, that's all public information. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I wasn't, going through people's garbage cans or anything like that. This is all legitimate public information. So let's go back to the Connecticut Judicial website. If you want to just find something, like let's say you know someone's name, you could do the case lookup. And then the case lookup can either be civil, family, or housing. So civil family is, that's divorce proceeding, family matter issues. And now they have gotten pretty good about now, like, highlighting the complaints. So you could actually click on the site itself if you have a name there, and you can, let me just put a name here that I know has something here. Well, anyways, you can put a name and then you can see a copy of the complaint, and that'll give you some understanding. Also, what's helpful here is like you want to find this, if you want to find someone who owned a house that's under foreclosure. If you can see here on the left-hand side, you could look at pending foreclosures. And right now, if you can see, there's 2 pending foreclosures in Avon. You could go down the list. The bigger you can see big cities like Hartford have the most foreclosure cases. So let's click on Hartford. This gives you information about the docket number, who lived in the house, and who lived in the house and what they owe. And this is over here's the full notice. How is this helpful? Okay, let's say you are writing about a development that's happening in an area and there's several foreclosed homes in that stretch of area. That gives you the context and the ability to look at the foreclosure, look at who lived there, and maybe even reach out to the person who is, may lose their home. Maybe they're trying to stop the foreclosure proceedings. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen there, but this is why it's super helpful. Okay, now LinkedIn is another website. Let's say, you're trying to track someone down and you're not 100% who they are, but you heard through the rumor mill that person works at Comcast. You could go to LinkedIn, type in Comcast, look at all the connections and see if you can narrow it down. Now, I want to do a caveat on something. Always verify everything that you find. So, I'm gonna give you an example. One way that I like to look for people is through voter records. I use myself as an example here. Okay, I go to the voterrecords.org. Again, this is useful when you're trying to find people, if you know they live on a certain block and you can narrow it down that way. So I did myself. I'm a voter. I live in 5 Jolyn Lane in Colchester, which is if you remember, I looked at the assessor's office and I was able to find everybody who lived on Jolyn Lane. So I go to the voter records, and this is why you have to take everything with a grain of salt. So I go down. Oh, gosh, I guess this is my age. I'm 46. There's nothing to hide about that. I'm 46. And it says relatives, Arminda, Francisco, and Marie. Now, yes, they are my relatives, but my mother, she actually does live with me. But my father, God rest his soul, has been dead for 13 years. And my sister, Marie, lives in North Carolina. So that's not, terribly helpful, especially if you're going to say that these people live with me. That's why you always have to verify everything that you see online. How do you verify things? Once you find that person and you want to confirm the identity, you go through a state official, you go through police. You can, sometimes I can even verify identities. Unfortunately, if someone passes away through the ME's office, once you got a name, you could call the ME's office and say, hey, this is the person. I'm looking for the cause and manner for this person's name. And if they confirm it, you're right. So look, it has all the listings for Jolyn Lane of who lives on my block, who's affiliated with party, which again, you take that with a grain of salt because we don't really know if that's true or not. So that's one way to more track down people. So let's go to the Secretary of State's office. Let's see, where are we at? Trying to find the Secretary of State for you guys. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I just lost it. So let me just go. Anyways, I closed out the tab by accident. But what you can do is go to the Secretary of State's website. And in the Secretary of State's website, it has a license lookup, which is really critical to look up, especially if you're trying to track someone who owns a business and you want to interview them, or it's a good way to find out who the developer is. And then you could do research on that developer. We had an instance that there was a developer coming in New London who wanted to buy a building, and we did some initial research. We found that person's name through the Secretary of State's office, and we realized that this person had a slew of complaints. So that's important for your writing. You have to, narrow it down by looking at these things. So the Secretary of State's office. Now, there are some paid resources as well that anyone can have access to. One of them is the PACER documents, which is you can find every federal case that's filed. How that works. No, don't log me in. Yes, stay logged in. So how does that work? You can, let me just go an example. Every federal case in the country you can find through PACER, and you can set up an individual account and pay as you go. I mean, ideally, I'm trying to give you all free sites, but sometimes you're going to have to pay a little bit. And I think it's like 10 cents a page. So it's not even a terrible burden. But for example, we have a reporter, Claire Bissett, who did a wonderful job in uncovering corruption in a utility company. And the person just recently got a sentence. So one of the persons that got sentenced, his name was Drew Rankin. And then you can see the case here associated with him. If you use PACER, a pro tip is that I want to give to you is the run history document. So you can view the document. You want to run the report. Let's see if it works. And then it'll usually, okay, now it's not working right now, but usually you can do that. And then it'll give you want to run the report and you want oldest first and to the newest. So like that, you can go down through every motion and every filing. Another access that it's against paid and it's very expensive. So if you have a news organization that's willing to pay for this, I would highly recommend LexisNexis. That is a website that you could find nationwide searches on anyone. Again, really interesting and how you could do it. And you could find, literally if you have a tail number of an airplane that crashed, you could put the tail number in and it'll tell you who owns the airplane. You can find licenses, marriage records. This is all important because, let's say you're writing about someone and you want to get more information about them, you can contact the person that they married, right? So that's one way to do it. So I also go to trying to find free sources. I'm going to lead you back to the free sources. Legacy.com is, a nationwide obituary site. If I think I know who it is, Let's just say I run my name through, let's pretend I'm running my husband's name, Brian Godelsky, on Legacy. I'm not sure, I heard it may be him. I put him in there, and then I see a list of people. His name showed up in an obituary related to certain people. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is the person. So let's say it shows up that he's, in addition, Brian Godelsky has brothers, Bruce and Keith and his sister Tammy. Now I know that there's some sort of, they're related in some way. I can then go back to Facebook, go back to Instagram, do a general Google search and see if I can track them down that way as well. I could also go and, go to LinkedIn and see if I can track down where that person works.
Ceci, we have just another minute or two, and I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
One is just a logistical question for those that are screenshotting everything for the purposes of maybe files that court files that might be expunged later, or websites that might be taken down. Do you have any practical advice on how to best archive all those screenshots and save them in a way where you can review them easily at a future date?
What I do is, because especially coming from my perspective, for a crime, a lot of the times people file AR, which is accelerated rehabilitation. So what I actually do is get a copy of the file, and then I create a PDF. I then go back to the office and create a PDF. For the screenshots, I would just keep, which is a smart thing to do, is create different files on your computer, the name and the case and the year. And I keep them that way too. But my personal preference is to scan the hard copy of the document into a PDF, because if I lose the document, at least I have that PDF forever in my cloud. Is that what they were looking for?
Yep. So I think a good way to save everything as a PDF, index them appropriately.
Exactly.
So you can
because a lot of times, if someone applies for AR, which is accelerated rehabilitation, once that's granted, you can never have access to those files again.
Got it.
You can never get access to it.
All right. One last question before we wrap up here today. Any quick suggestions for Snapchat? Do you work with Snapchat at all? Do you have any suggestions on how to search Snapchat?
Yeah, Snapchat is a tricky one. I don't use it often, only because it's unless you're friends or have some sort of connection with the person, you're not going to be able to see the snap, and the snap itself disappears within less than 24 hours. So I'm going to be honest with you. I stick to things that leave longer footprints, like I would even use TikTok before Snapchat to try to track people down, because Snapchat just erases everything after 24 hours.
Got it. Sassy, thank you so much for all of these tips, guidance, advice, really helpful. And many thanks to everyone else who joined us today. If you found today's class helpful in any way, please consider becoming a sustaining member of NEFAC at nefac.org/join. Your annual support is what helps us provide classes like this one. So thank you all again, and we'll see you next month for our next 30-minute skills.